Get Kowalski. An introductory message from Professor Hugh Drewno and Professor Kari Woda from the Department of Vivisectorical Studies, Poldonia College. Quote, "It will come as no great surprise to learn that many of the world's leaders have managed the affairs of state like a bunch of droopy George 4-year-olds squabbling over a rubber ducky. Now that the shifting winds of political change have revealed, through newly declassified documents, the true history of this sorry-ass ship of fools, we can present for your edification and enjoyment one such tale." Unquote. Amidst an outcry over the decline in public morals, the presence of subversive foreigners cycling the land, and a surfeit of dog dirt on the sidewalks of the capital city, the Party for Law, Order, and Pedestrian Purity, better known as PLOP, seized the reins of power and proclaimed a new mandate to root out terrorism. PLOP was on the trot. Hardly had the last vote been purchased when newly installed President Hinky Dinky and Prime Minister Rinky Dinky foregathered with the usual suspects to share a modest repast. Brandy flowed, cigars glowed, smoke spiraled to the ceiling. The hubbub was deafening and the whining piteous as they cried out for ideas ever more hideous. "Gentlemen," cried President Hinky Dinky, pounding the meeting to order, "this is our dilemma, to find a source of infinite funds in the hands of complete idiots. Only a steady infusion of filthy lucre will make plop fly and save our phony baloney jobs." "America the Beautiful," they all cried out together. "That's right, Americans, the perfect idiots for us. They give us cash and we give them plop. It's more than a fair exchange." "All hail the chief, hail yes," they all cried out together. With all hail reverberating through the banquet hall, presidential advisor Perfidious Kowalski emerged from his hiding place behind the lectern to deliver the gospel of hope. "We have identified Al-Qaeda, a burgeoning underground terrorist movement in the capital city. Their tactic: create and deploy weapons of mass destruction disguised as dog dirt." "Kupa, kupa, oh," they all cried out together. "This makes every dog and every dog owner in Poland a potential terror suspect, giving us an excuse to arrest virtually the entire population without cause. Just think of the cash this will generate. First, the Americans pay us to stare at the sidewalk, and then the dog owners pay us to stay out of prison." "Forsy, Szmalec, oh," they all cried out together. "I have just returned from the United States where I presented our plan to the head of the American intelligence community." Pausing for maximum dramatic effect, Perfidious stretched his arms outwards and with a wry smile announced, "The CIA bought it, hook, line, and stinker." In a state of joyous rapture, the crowd chanted the party slogan, "It's all a fraud, a fake, a farce. The truth is irrelevant. Kiss my arse." Now all we need is a hero, our first special agent for pedestrian purity. That's right, gentlemen, we need a sap, and we need him now. "Get Kowalski," they all cried out together. Within hours, word of these developments had seeped into every crevasse in the international development and intelligence community, better known as IDIC. None was darker and more in need of fresh air than the fetid lair of Bossy LaBelle, the biggest IDIC of them all, and former queen of that uniquely 90s phenomenon, the Marriott Brigade. At the peak of their power, these jut-jawed femaloid carpetbaggers, pug-faced and grim, their squat formless frames girded tense, chinless mincing maloids in tow, head ducked strutted with impunity through the lobby of the beast and into the annals of infamy. With their febrile, smirk-frowned faces slicing through the air like an icebreaker lurching toward Murmansk, They chanted, "O beautiful rapacious skies, what amber rays of pain, we trudged the loathsome road of destiny across the charred remains." It was not a pretty picture. Thankfully, even atrocities eventually come to an end, and the day arrived when, her funding sources depleted and her sycophant entourage dispersed to the four corners, this once unrivaled exemplar of the generation of wine found herself more alone than an abandoned latrine. Until now, that is. The purple ruse of Al-Qayupa, a funding coup of biblical proportions, gave Bossy the perfect opportunity once again to stand astride the smoldering carcasses of a lesser humanity, thighs thundering and mouth ablaze, the dominatrix of all she surveys. With the game already well afoot, Bossy hurriedly summoned her longtime advisor, Slippery Zabwatsky, to develop a cunning plan. Centrum is already chock-a-blockhead with poseurs, prats, and pillocks of every possible description, Slippery said. So we should have no trouble justifying the expense of a few plodding dullards dressed up in camouflage pantaloons. "More! Tell me more!" she implored, panting like a racehorse. "We will call them Plodards, after Jean-Luc Plodard, the wildly popular music video director and originator of the French Tsimbaoist school of philosophy. He is actually a plumber from Elk, but he's made it big in France. We attended grade school together." "Oh yes, tell me more, tell me more," she begged. "Ostensibly, their job will be to question the disheveled and dishevel the questionable," he continued. "But of course, the truth is something else. It always is. Their real function will be to stand on street corners and scribble in notebooks. It's just a show to impress the public with how seriously we take terrorism and illegal immigration. The people they question will be actors hired by the city." "Thank God for politics," she squealed with delight, sliding off her chair onto the floor. And so it came to pass. Bossy and Slippery were back at the saddle again, managing teams of Plodards who patrolled the city. Several months into his vigil, Kowalski arose from his humble redoubt behind a row of scraggly bushes along Ulica Hoja to stretch his legs. He was supposed to be hunting down the agents of Al-Qayupa, but since there was no such group, he had to improvise. Mostly he just squatted behind the bushes, stared at the sidewalk, and smoked. As jobs go, it wasn't bad. It gave him something to do while waiting for his ship to arrive. Surveying the length and breadth of his little kingdom, Kowalski tipped his hat to an old lady shuffling home from Mass. But she soldiered on without a glance. Undeterred by this minor snub, he lit a cigarette and took a deep drag. The inviting warmth of a sunny Sunday morning in October had put him in such a cheerful mood that he felt immune to the slings and arrows of everyday life. Jarred back to reality by the ominous cadence of a plodding footfall, Kowalski ducked behind the bushes and fired up the video recorder. Soon 2 Plodards swaggered into view, dressed in their Sunday best camouflage pantaloons. Kowalski sighed at the thought of how these flathead poltroons had so quickly come to infest Centrum. As they stiff-legged it past the duck blind, Kowalski heard a frantic tippity-tappity scratch-scratch sound coming from the opposite direction. Turning to look, he spied Captain Hoinka of the Special Branch, his former boss and longtime nemesis, being dragged along the sidewalk by a yapping little dog on a leash. Kowalski's stomach wrenched and his neck stiffened at the sight of this old Beton Guava. For nearly 3 decades, Captain Hoinka had needled and humiliated him in front of his fellow officers on the police force. Even so, Kowalski sensed that the worm was about to turn. With Captain Hoenka directly in the camera's view, the yapping little dog abruptly halted and assumed the squatting position. After much straining and nervous shaking, he, the dog that is, deposited a prodigious pile on the otherwise pristine walkway, far too much for even Captain Hoenka to ignore. After looking about for witnesses and seeing none, he, Captain Hoenka that is, tried to flip the pile onto the street with his right foot. Unfortunately, the pile was insufficiently firm to respond to such treatment in the hoped-for manner. Instead, the substance in question covered the entire toe portion of his shoe. Holding the leash in his left hand, restraining the now wildly yapping little dog who was trying to run away, and hopping on his left foot while trying to sling the odeur from his right foot, Captain Hoenka was the very picture of urbane sophistication. "Shut your trap, Farfel," he yelled at the dog to no avail. At last, the great dialectical imperative that drives the march of history had taken a direction advantageous to the long-suffering Kowalski, who thanked divine providence for delivering Captain Hoenka and Farfel to him in plenty of time for Christmas. Surging from behind the bushes, he unleashed the battle cry of the saps, "Carpe Dupec!" "What?" the captain barked. "By authority of the state, I arrest you and your dog on suspicion of terrorist activities and reckless disregard for pedestrian purity." "Hey, Kowalski, is that you? Don't you recognize me, your old Captain Hoenka?" Just then, the Plodards reappeared, accompanied by two off-duty actors with their own yapping little dogs in tow. Sensing the presence of a video camera, the actors immediately got into character, wheeling and jockeying to see who could strike the best pose. In a wildly improbable twist of fate, Bossy LaBelle and Slippery Zabwatsky emerged from their love nest in the building behind Kowalski's lair and tried to sneak past the conflagration. Unfortunately for them, Zabwatsky's dog, a poodle named Petard, gave them away at once and dragged the happy couple into the fray. Captain Hoenka tried to take command of the situation, but it was too late. The actors' dogs had already made their own organic contributions to the sidewalk of dreams, into which the good captain promptly fell, dragging the Plodards down with him. Chasing after his beloved Petard, Zabwatsky skidded to an ignominious halt and catapulted face first into the dog pile, dragging Bossy behind him. Meanwhile, a crowd of gushing well-wishers opened a fire hydrant and hosed them all into the gutter, where they remained until a paddy wagon arrived and carted them away. Kowalski had hit the mother lode at last. It was a great day to be alive. Almost immediately, Kowalski's agents were on the job, trying to suppress all evidence. Kowalski claimed that, in the excitement, he had forgotten to put a cassette into the camera before turning it on. It was not a very clever ploy, but it worked. At home later that evening, Kowalski sat at his kitchen table, staring at the only copy of the videotape. "So close and yet so far," he muttered to himself, knowing that if he made the tape public, Kowalski would know he had lied. Just then his son, little Johnny Kowalski, burst into the room. "Hey, Pops, how's it flying?" "Slowly, my son, slowly." "Don't be so glum, Pops. I've got the answer to all your problems." "What are you talking about, kid?" "Take a look at this," he said, firing up the video player on his computer. Kowalski stared in silent amazement at a tape of the entire secret meeting where Hanky Dinky and Rinky Dinky had made him the nation's first sap. "Jesu Maria, kid." "How did you get this stuff?" Kowalski asked, his eyes bugging out. "The fruits of a misspent youth, Daddy-o," little Johnny said. "And this is only the tip of the compost heap. I have nearly 150 tapes of prominent politicians and their cronies compromising themselves, including Bossy and Slippery doing things you don't even want to think about. Now, combine my stuff with your tape, and we've got ourselves the... What? The what? Kowalski demanded. The Kowalski Mówi Channel, little Johnny announced, triumphantly snapping the fingers of both hands. It'll be like shooting Flocky at a barrel, Pops. We'll be the biggest thing on the internet. We'll be rolling in so much dough, Mom won't be able to count it all. And so it came to pass. Seemingly overnight, the Kowalski Mówi Channel, all rights reserved to the family's new company, No To Co Spukazo, achieved stratospheric popularity in Poland and around the world. Beginning on YouTube, it quickly expanded to local cable TV outlets and product licensing ventures. Pani Kowalska, the real brains behind the enterprise, started her own cooking show, Pani in the Pantry, which soon rivaled the international popularity of Martha Stewart. All across the land, people were singing the show's signature jingle. Dobrze smakuje, nic nie brakuje, mało kosztuje, bo pani Kowalska gotuje. In due course, Kowalski became a star in his own right as the host of Ask Kowalski, a talk show produced by Little Johnny and globally syndicated on MTV. Leveraging his newfound fame, Kowalski launched his political career by founding ESP, the Extra Special Party. Soon bumper stickers saying, ESP, we know what you want, appeared on vehicles across the land. In the next presidential election, Kowalski secured a wide margin of victory by campaigning under the promise, if I can't be honest, I'll at least be brief. The voters appreciated his courtesy.